talk to you about my project, Realms of the Dark Ages. Realms of the Dark Ages is a medieval online game that I've been working on for the past 4 years, driven by my interest in medieval times and game development. It's a very ambitious project and takes thousands of hours to complete.
No, get him on the lectern.
When developing a project like this, a lot of different skill sets are needed. You have your 2D team that is creating textures and drawing. They then pass their work onto the 3D team, who then create the drawing in 3D and import it into the engine. All the sound needs to be created and added to certain events. An example would be when you cast a spell, a sound effect would need to be played. Without the programming team, there would be no game. It is a programmer's role to program gameplay and make the game interesting and fun. The rules team is basically working out how to turn the game into an RPG. They come up with the correct items and stats for classes. Writers make storyline for the game. They are needed as a role-playing game. Web development programs your content management system and website. And if you create an account on the website, it will automatically add it to the game. Testing team, also known as quality assurance team, will test the game and report bugs. They will also test the game before a live patch to make sure anything hasn't been broken. You can see why this project takes a long time. Because we don't have a massive company or large team to complete the game, we need to divide the roles over the amount of people we have. My father and I are the only people working on the project. I'm working on the programming side, while my father is working on the 3D artwork. There are different types of players that you have to take into consideration. For social, the game is just a backdrop for people to communicate with their friends. Killers will enjoy killing anything they can find and would rather player-controlled enemies over non-playable controlled ones. Grievers just want to create chaos and wreak havoc for your game masters. Achievers will move mountains to get their skills recognised or completing very hard parts of the game. Explorers will seek every scrap of information they can find. They are there to explore and learn and enjoy sharing information that is very hard to come by. Some of the problems I've had when developing my game. My Linux dedicated server that was running the game froze. So I turned it off and restarted it and it was dead. It didn't even get up to the power on self-test. So I borrowed one of my dad's computers that he uses for fixing Xboxes. It died within 24 hours later. So I had to save up and buy another computer. We did have spare computers to run the game, but they were only 32-bit and the game only supported 64-bit. Getting items to work was also a challenge. We eventually worked out that both the client and the server needs to have a copy of the item for security purposes. We were only just adding it to the server, causing an issue where you had to log out and log back in to get the item to work. When we first started, sound didn't work at all. Turned out we had to download another program and build all our sounds into a database to get them to work. We also had problems in sharing resources. David passed me a model over through the network, and as soon as I get it, I copied it over to the game folder. Explorer would crash, having me to copy it over again. It got so bad it was quicker emailing the model. Polygon count is also an issue. If we have a high polygon count, then the game will have network latency issues. Here's a short preview of our game, work in progress. My sister composed the music. Programming the game wasn't easy. You hit many brick walls before you got something working. When you finally do get over the brick wall, there's an even bigger brick wall at the other side. The code involved a lot of different problem solving to get different things working. We are using C++ for the core of the engine. This handles all the rendering and main features, while the gameplay logic is coded within a scripting language called Python. This allows us to use interactive middleware to enhance our code. Now my dad, David Cassells, will talk about 3D modelling.
Hello, my name's Dave. I'm not used to talking in front of people. This is my first live presentation. I started modelling approximately 8 years ago just as a hobby. And so I enjoy creating 3D models, and you get a real buzz when you actually spend all that time creating a model and then export it to the engine and actually just see it come to life. It gives you a real sense of satisfaction. When a model is requested, I find a suitable reference image. I find a suitable reference image on the internet or wherever I can possibly find some images. Either take a photograph of something or whatever. Basically, I need to research as much as I can about the model that I'm going to produce. Here you can see I've got a basic reference image of a barn, and then I've got a low polygon barn model that I produced, bearing in mind that the finished product does not have to be a replication of the actual reference image. This is only a reference image, it's not a blueprint. Things to consider when I have to model. Now, the problem we have is it's a multiplayer online role-playing game. So therefore, I'm restricted to ways in which I model do my models. First of all, the level of detail of the model, the polygon budget. I need to model in very low polygon, otherwise I find you'll have problems with server latency, you'll have server lag. Is all the mesh going to be seen? There's no use having to model a complete model if you're only going to see the front of the model, so you only really need to model what you are actually going to see in the game. What lighting situation exists, because some models will need the texturing, may have to have self-illumination, just depends where the model exists in the game, and what texture requirements are for the model. Is level of detail required? With the engine, our engine supports level of detail. In other words, we can produce 3 meshes of different levels of detail, and as the character becomes closer to the mesh, we then replace a low level detail mesh with a high quality mesh, and that way your engine's not working so hard. And here we have a bit of a zone I'm working on at the moment. You can probably see in the background it's still untextured, unedited, and that's the same barn. Put in a little scene there to give you an idea what I do. Bearing in mind it's only a low polygon model. Here we have just a wireframe view of a mesh, and it's a night character. And basically, you can also see inside that mesh is a coloured, another coloured bone structure, which I'll explain about what that is in a second. Meshes are created using the polygon tools inside of 3ds Max. With every incremental save, I find that the mesh will slowly improve. So by the time I get to mesh save number 65, well, I find my model has advanced progressively and we're quite happy with the end product. We do throw a bit of a basic texture on just to see how the model's going to stack up. You could have a really good model and put a poor texture on that really destroys the model, or you could have a poor model and put a good texture on which actually enhances the model. Because we model in low polygon, we have to try and add detail to the model by having high quality textures to make it appear as if it's really high resolution. Now, you probably don't realise, a lot of people may not realise that textures are actually a 2D flat image, and a 2D flat image is produced in external applications like Photoshop, PaintShop, those sort of applications, and the image is then placed onto a 3D model. So it's a bit difficult trying to place a 2D texture on a 3D model. So the way we do this in 3ds Max is we actually map the model using the UVW mapping, and we're able to actually flatten the UVW surfaces of the model, export it to Photoshop and paint the texture. So here you can just see the actual flat 2D UVW mapping of the character, even though the character's already been textured. And that's what it looks like in Photoshop. You're actually looking at your 2D map and you're looking at the finished 3D character. Backspace. The very last thing I'll quickly talk about, and don't waste too much time, is basically animating characters. Animating characters is where you have a static mesh. Then you'll place a bone rig inside the mesh. The bone rig is then scanned to the mesh. In other words, what we do, we attach the vertices to assign each vertice to the bone object. So it allows correct deformation of the character. The bones themselves are keyframed. And we then export the model, the textures and the animations all separately to the editor. So Matthew then can do whatever he wants to do with those, yeah. And now I'll put you on back to Matthew. Yep.
How I started my game. First, I decided what type of game I was going to make. Then I started writing up every aspect and put it into a game design document. Once you've written your game design document, you'll need to access and acquire key game engine components that you will then use to make your game. Once you've created a game prototype, you're now ready to contact a publisher to receive funding, or you can self-publish. After all that is completed, you then start working through your game. I tried many different game engines for my game over the years. Some were half finished and full of bugs, but decided on using MMO middleware because it offered the best solution. I decided on using a core engine in C++ with Python scripting because this then works well with integrating middleware such as Python, such as Fmod, a sound system by Firelight Technologies, and SpeedTree, allowing me to use existing code for advanced features and not having to write the engine from scratch. Some of the tools required are an engine, a dedicated server if your game's multiplayer, an imaging editing program like Photoshop or similar, a programming language that you will use. You also need a 3D modelling program like 3D Max or similar, and the PC workstation setup. I'd like to thank Andrew Owen and Monash University for allowing me to give this presentation. Is there any questions?
Questions? I'll do that part. Questions. You, sir.
Yeah, well done on your game. It looks really good. But what program did you use for the level design?
Level design? Well, if you want to design a level, there's several applications you can use. For terrain generation, use a program called Free. It's LDT3, and it'll generate